Well, we made it to 300 episodes of Paper Napkin Wisdom, which means I've officially talked into a microphone more than most people talk to their relatives. To celebrate, head over to papernapkinwisdom.com, scroll down, type book in the contact form, fill out the rest of the information, and we'll send you 3 free ebooks: the Demand Blueprint, the Profit Blueprint, and the Gratitude Ritual. That's $25 in value, cheaper than therapy, and way more useful.
Welcome to Paper Napkin Wisdom, where we share pearls of wisdom shared by some of the world's top entrepreneurs, leaders, and difference makers. Here's your host, Govind Jayaraman.
Hi, I'm Govind Jayaraman, and this is Paper Napkin Wisdom, episode 310, and it's Edge of the Napkin number 10. Have you ever noticed how some days just don't seem to unfold a certain way? You spill your coffee, you stub your toe, you drop your keys, and then instantly, it's one of those days. And somehow it is. And then there are these other days where everything just flows. You wake up with energy, confidence, purpose. The right people show up, doors open, ideas click. What's the difference between those days? Was it just the story you told yourself? In this episode of Edge of the Napkin, we're going to dig deep into the invisible scripts that help shape how entrepreneurs think, act, and lead. Because as I've discovered, and maybe you've noticed too, every entrepreneur lives inside a story. Every leader, every difference maker lives inside a story. The question is, who's writing yours? We'll explore how to spot the stories that limit you, how to rewrite the ones that no longer serve you, and how to use the most powerful creative forces we have, make-believe, to build a life and business aligned with who you're becoming. So, whether you're just starting your entrepreneurial journey or standing at the edge of your next big step or leading or difference making in a big team in a big way, take a breath, grab a napkin, and ask yourself, what would happen if you made up a story that worked for you instead of against you? Let's find out. Hi, I'm Govind, and go Jays. So, today, I want to talk about something that's kind of interesting and kind of topical. It came up in a call that I had with a group of friends recently. And it really comes down to this. Have you ever had that feeling that something is about to happen? Everywhere you go, it feels like a dark cloud is falling. You stub your toe when you get out of bed, you drop your keys, you bump your head on a car door, and then, just to put the cherry on top, you spill your coffee all over that white shirt that you're wearing today. And it's not even 8 a.m. yet. And you start to tell yourself the story that, yep, it's going to be one of those days. And just like that, the story begins. You've written the script for the next 12 hours. You're not living your life anymore. You're living a story that you made up. And it's one of bad luck, frustration, and misery. What about the other side? Have you ever had a feeling like when you spring out of bed and something good is coming your way? You wake up and, like, for no particular reason, there's this little spring in your step. You hum while brushing your teeth. Every green light appears on the way to work. You find $20 in that jacket pocket that you haven't put on for about 2 or 3 months. And you get to the coffee shop that you go to every day, and the barista smiles and gives you a free coffee. You pick the short line at the grocery store or at the security lineup at the airport. Everything just clicks. And somewhere deep inside you think, yeah, today is going to be a good day. Isn't it interesting how that feeling, good or bad, seems to follow us out the door? But that's the thing I want to think into or dig into today. That feeling, that sense of dread, or that sense of luck isn't real. It's not truth. It's not science. It's not physics. It's not fate. It's a story. It's a made up story. A story we tell ourselves, a story, not the facts, not the circumstances, that becomes the reality that we're in and we're living through. We are master. I'm a master storyteller to myself. Every one of us are, though. And we tell stories about what's happening, what might happen. and what that means about us and what somebody might be saying or what they might not be saying or what might be going on or what might not be going on. And most of the time, these stories just aren't helpful. They're not empowering. They're not protective, but they keep us small. So here's what it sounds like. That customer doesn't like me. My boss is out to get me. I'm not good with money. I always screw this part up. Something bad's about to happen. Why does this always happen to me? I know I've said at least one of those before. We all have. And every one of those statements, every one of those thoughts are just stories. And this is something that was hard for me to realize because I did this all the time, but they're make-believe. And here's the part that gets overlooked. Thoughts become things. Your brain can't tell the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. The same circuits fire, the same chemicals go through our bloodstream, and the moment you think something bad's about to happen, your body prepares for it. Your shoulders tighten, your heart rate changes, your perception narrows. You start scanning for proof that your story is right because your brain loves to be right. And that's confirmation bias in action. What happens? Guess what happens? You find evidence. Every piece of evidence that you find reinforces a story that you've invented for yourself that day, and the world starts matching the movie that's already playing in your head. So we know that's true because we've done that before. I've done that before. You've probably done parts of it before. So if we know that's true and we know what that is, why not choose a different story? Why not make up stories that work for us instead of against us? Why don't we change the story is why is this happening for me as opposed to me? So the phrase make believe is one of the most powerful ideas in the English language. And we never stop to think about it. Make believe. It's an instruction set. Make something, then believe it. And that's how everything that is us as human begins. Every business, every innovation, every dream, every relationship, they start up as make-believe, which is why I also like to say make it bad and make it better. Just make it. Make and believe. Steve Jobs imagined a computer for your pocket. Make-believe. The Wright brothers imagined humans flying. Make-believe. A kid with a blanket around their shoulders imagined their superhero. Make-believe. And yet, look what happens when they commit to the story. Yeah, the kid doesn't fly, but there's a computer in your pocket, and the Wright brothers made us fly. And that's the secret. Make-believe isn't lying, it's creation. And it's the foundation of innovation, of resilience, of leadership, and personal growth. And you already know how to do it. We just forgot. Kids are masters of make-believe. Give a child a stick, it becomes a sword or a lightsaber. Give them a cardboard box, and they're in a spaceship. They don't need evidence. They don't need permission. They believe because it feels real. And that belief shapes how they act, shapes what they see, shapes how they feel. But somewhere along the way, we unlearn it. We start mistaking skepticism for intelligent. We call imagination childish. We worship realism as if it's truth. And we build our cages out of stories that sound responsible and protective. We say things like, I'm just being realistic. I've just got to be practical. I can't afford to think like that. But what we're really doing and what's really happening is we're defending the limits of the story that we've already believed. So every time we defend it, we make it more and more real. It's like we're putting another brick in the wall. I've coached hundreds of leaders and entrepreneurs. And you know what the biggest limiting factor is in every case? It's not money. It's not time. It's not talent. It's the story they're telling themselves about what's possible for them. They say things like, we're not ready to scale. This industry is just too competitive. I can't find good people. And I'll ask, is that true or is that a story you've made up? And there's always a pause because deep down, they know it's a story. And if it's a story, it means it can be rewritten. So let's talk about how to actually do that, how to make up better stories, the kind that work for you. I use a few different methods for this, and really maybe three, with clients, teams, and even in my own life. And the first one is the focus, align, act loop. And you've heard me talk about this before because it's the core of everything. If thoughts become things, and they do, then focus, align, act is the manual how to create intentionality. Focus. What's the story you're telling? The first step is noticing the narrative that's running on autopilot and ask yourself, what am I assuming to be true right now? And you might find that you're operating under a belief that's limiting or a decision that's limiting. I never get a break, or I always have to do everything myself, or why am I always being pulled back into things? Awareness breaks the spell, and then you can focus instead on what you want, a better story. Then align around it. What story would serve you better? I never get a break. Opportunities show up for me when I'm open to them. How about, it's not about wishful thinking, it's about alignment. When your new story begins with your goals and values, your actions flow naturally, and you can clean the lens to actually see them. Why is this happening for me as opposed to why is this happening to me? And then most importantly, act. Focus, align, act. What's one small action that you can be all in on and that proves the story is true? Action is the proof of belief. It's not results that are the proof of belief. It's action that is the proof of belief. It's how we convince the unconscious mind that the theory is real. So if your story is, I attract opportunity, then call a client, send a proposal, make the ask. Each step reinforces the belief. Each action reinforces the belief. Focus, align, act is not a linear process. It's a loop. The more you do it, the stronger your new story becomes and the weaker the old story gets. You're moving towards a greater story. And if you write it down, it's even more powerful. And so focus, align, act is tool number one. If that's tool number one, tool number two is flip the script. Whenever you catch yourself saying something negative, a limiting story, a limiting decision, a limiting whatever, stop and rewrite it in real time. For example, I'm terrible with names. Switches to, I'm getting better remembering names, and it's so great that I'm meeting new people so I can practice this new skill. This client is a nightmare to, this client is teaching me patience and clarity, or this client is teaching me about which clients we can serve best. I'm always late could be shifted to, I'm learning to respect my own time and become a better communicator about what my limitations are. Now, I can hear some of you saying right now, Govind, that sounds like toxic positivity. No, it's not about pretending everything's perfect. It's not about singing Kumbaya while you're burning down the house. It's about taking ownership about your internal narrative. It's not about denying the facts. It's about reframing them and the meaning for why is it happening to you to why it is happening for you. When you flip the script, you move from victim to author. And authors have the pen, and the pen is the power. They don't just live the story, authors, they create it. Method number three is what I talked about earlier on. Since this is make-believe, make it bad and make it better. You've heard me say this before too, and it's one of my favorite ideas. Most people never start because they're waiting for perfect conditions. They want to have the right story before they begin. But that's not how stories or lives evolve. You've got to be willing to make it bad before you can make it better. Write the first draft, try the first pitch, take the first swing, then use what you learn to make it better. It works with your internal stories too. This works in every way. You don't have to believe the story 100% yet. Just start playing with it. Put dents in it. Let's say you've been telling yourself that you're not a good enough leader. Well, let's make it bad. You're not a good leader yet. Then make it better. I'm learning to become the kind of leader my team deserves. And then finally, you could shift it further. I am the kind of leader who grows and inspires others. I am the kind of leader who learns from my mistakes and shares them openly with my team. See what happened there? We didn't leap from self-doubt to delusion. It's not toxic positivity. We iterated the belief in terms of something that serves you, that works for you. And that's how new stories take root. Small, believable improvements made up, practiced, and reinforced. So why does this stuff work? Because your mind is programmable. It's code. Your stories are the code. When you say, I can't do this, your brain runs a loop that shuts down creative problem solving. When you say, I can figure this out, your brain starts scanning for evidence that you can. You literally open up new neural pathways with that different thought. And the more emotionally charged the belief, the faster it sticks. That's why kids are such good make-believers. They don't just superficially make believe. They commit emotionally. They don't half believe, they live it. They're in the present tense. They're there. When a kid is pretending to be Spider-Man, they are Spider-Man. They don't question whether or not they're doing it right, whether they look good doing it, or what somebody else thinks. They don't need anybody else to believe it. That's presence. That's commitment. That's power. If we could bring that same level of commitment to our own stories, the stories about leadership, about our health, about our business, about our family, about our role, everything changes because you're no longer reacting to the world. You're authoring it. No one. Now, let's go one layer deeper. We often talk about belief like it's an abstract concept, but it's not. Belief changes biology. When you believe something fully, your physiology, your body responds. Your posture shifts. Your tone changes. You act differently. And that's what changes your results. It's in the 1%. You don't affect your outcomes with belief alone. You align behavior through belief. Belief is the switch that tells your system how to show up. And you've seen this before. A leader who walks into a room coherent, confident, grounded, focused, that person changes the energy, the vibe in the entire room of everyone there. And it's not magic. That's the alignment between story and state. They believe their presence matters. They believe that how they show up matters. So they prepared themselves for it. And then guess what? Their presence does matter. Now imagine what would happen if you walked into every day like that. Not from arrogance, but from authorship, from knowing the story you're choosing to live. So let's talk about loops. Every story you believe creates behavior. Every behavior creates evidence. Every piece of evidence reinforces the story. And that's the loop. So if you want different results, you've got to interrupt the loop at the level of story. You can just try to change the behavior, but that's not sustainable. For example, if you believe you're bad at sales, you'll show up tentative, apologetic, excusing, trying to explain yourself and unsure. And people will pick up that lack of certainty as a lack of certainty. That energy gets mirrored back to you by your prospect who loses confidence because you don't have it. So they don't buy. They can't transfer their trust to you if they're not confident, which confirms your story. See, I'm bad at sales. But if you change the story, if you decide I'm learning how to help people make great decisions, or even just I'm learning how to help people, and leave it there, your energy changes and the results follow because you're actually interested in helping them. They can pick up on that. That's what you're there for. Same skill set, different story, different outcome, different everything. And that's why I always tell leaders, you don't need to be right about your story. You just need to be effective. Choose a story that creates the behavior that creates the result. And that's leadership. So let's get practical. Here are a few ways that you can start rewriting your stories today. Number one, name the narrator. When you catch yourself spiraling in a negative story, pause and say, oh, that's just my catastrophe or disaster narrator. Or there's my imposter voice again. And by naming it, you can separate it and you can put it away. You can remind yourself that you're the storyteller, not the story. Journal the rewrite. Dr. Jim Lair talks about you can change your story if you rewrite it. So write down one story that you've been carrying that isn't serving you, but write it in a way that does. Write a new version as if it's already true. Write about it in discovery if you're not certain yet, that you're learning how to do this. So your old story could be, I'm always behind and catching up. And your new story is, it's valuable that I'm learning how to move at a speed of what really matters. Take one small action that supports that story. Figure out one small thing that you can do right after you write that story that moves you in the direction of the story. And that's how the belief gets wired in. Now, use the napkin trick. You know I love a good napkin. Draw a line down the middle. On the left side, write old story. On the right side, write the new story. Seeing it side by side can make it tangible. So you've got an old story and a new story. Reframe, reframe, reframe. That's make believe in action. It's simple, but it's powerful. And this for me is very personal. Not long ago, I was going through a season in my life that felt really heavy. Everything that I was working on seemed to fall apart at the last minute. Like I'd get all the way through it and it would just fall apart. Every conversation felt like friction. Every day I woke up feeling like I was behind. I started telling myself a story. Nothing's working. I can't make it work. And because I believed it, I acted like it was true. I hesitated to make big moves. I double guessed every decision. I looked for signs that confirmed my story. And of course, I found them everywhere. I was miserable. I was in a dark, dark place. And at one point, I wrote down, nothing's working in my journal. And I looked at it. I stopped when I noticed that. And I realized how ridiculous it was. And I crossed out nothing. And I started to write down what was working. I had people who loved me. I had a platform to share ideas. I had opportunities in front of me. I just couldn't see them because of the story that was blinding me. So I rewrote it. Everything is working, but not in the way I expected. That became my make-believe. And within weeks, and I mean weeks, things started shifting. Conversations opened. Opportunities appeared. Energy came back. Did the universe change? Maybe. But more importantly, I changed the way I was looking at it. So it changed too. My story changed, and everything around me changed. Let's go back to something I said earlier about kids. Kids understand make-believe better than we do because they play all in. When they pretend, they don't halfway believe. They don't need proof. They decide it's real and live into it. And that's what presence looks like. That's what belief feels like. And that's exactly what we lose as adults when we start caring more about looking smart than feeling alive. But here's the truth. The people who change the world, the innovators, the entrepreneurs, the leaders who build movements, the difference makers, they never stop playing make-believe. They just started calling it vision. And they held on to their vision tightly. So here's a challenge. And maybe you want to consider this, and maybe you already are. Take a week and pay attention to the stories you tell yourself. Notice how quickly your mind fills in the blanks. Notice how every small frustration turns into a headline. Notice how every fear becomes prophecy. And then interrupt it, pause it, and ask, why is this happening for me? What else could be true? What story could move me forward instead of holding me back? And then make believe. Act as if the new story were true. Live it, test it, refine it, play with it. Because that's how we move from being characters in our story to authors of it. That's how we move from how things are happening to you to things happening for you and by you. So if you were to draw this out on a napkin, it would be simple. Across the top, the stories you tell yourself. Down the left side, negative story, limiting decision, proof, and reinforced belief. And on the right side, you have an empowering story, intentional action, evidence, and reinforced belief. And the bridge between them is make-believe. That's the hinge. That's where everything changes. Think of make-believe as the hinge on the door frame that opens up to opportunity. You make the belief, and then you live into it. It takes courage to make believe. I get it. Because the moment you choose a new story, the old one fights back. It whispers, who are you to think like that? It points to the past as evidence. It recruits your fear as backup. And this is where you decide what kind of author you're going to be. The one who kind of edits the old script endlessly, or the one who starts with a new draft. And here's the thing. You don't have to edit the old story. You can start with a fresh page. Courage isn't about being fearless. It's about believing in a story that doesn't have proof yet and showing up anyway. That's faith in motion, that's leadership, that's creation, and that's vision. So when you change your story, the people around you feel it. Because your story doesn't stay inside your head. It leaks into your tone, your choices, your presence. It shapes how you treat people, how you lead, and how you love. Your story is, perhaps before, people can't be trusted, you build walls. If your story is, people want to do their best, then you build bridges. And when you build bridges, others start to cross them. They start to tell better stories too. And that's how culture shifts, one person's belief at a time. So your personal make-believe isn't personal at all. It's actually really contagious. You become the living proof that better stories are possible and likely. So how do you know it's all working? Well, you'll know your new story is taking root when life starts getting lighter. Not easier, but lighter. You'll notice how you recover from frustration faster because you're in a learning mode. You'll notice how you spot opportunities where you used to see obstacles. You'll notice that you start to laugh more even when things aren't perfect, and the texture of a better story is in all of these things. It's not the absence of problems, it's the presence of perspective. It's the ability to reset and act again purely out of faith. So let me leave you with one last story about a man who carried a pebble in his pocket. Every morning, he'd pick up that same little stone and whisper a word and drop it in. And that word was possibility. He didn't tell anyone about it. He didn't even fully understand why he did it, just picked it up. But over time, that simple act changed how he worked and walked through the world. When he faced a challenge, he'd feel that pebble in his pocket, roll it in his fingers, and he'd already decided to believe in possibility. He wasn't waiting for proof. He was making it. We all need something like that pebble. Something small, something simple, something that reminds us that the story we live is ours to write. For me, it's my journal. It's the paper napkin. For you, maybe it's a pebble or a Post-it or a phrase you repeat. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as it brings you back to authorship. So here's your edge of the napkin challenge for this week. Notice your stories, name them, rewrite them, live them. Don't wait for proof. Make believe first, because everything that's ever been real started there in the imagination of someone brave enough to believe before seeing. So when you wake up tomorrow morning, you'll start telling yourself stories before you even open your eyes about your to-do list, about your relationships, about your worth, about your fatigue, about anything. And these stories will decide how you feel, how you act, and what kind of day you will have. So tomorrow, before your feet hit the floor, maybe you're already thinking about pausing and asking yourself, what story do I want to live today? And then make believe. All in. Like a kid with a cardboard lightsaber. Like a leader who knows their future is unwritten. Like someone who understands the only difference between dread and joy is the story that holds your attention. If thoughts become things, then the stories you tell are the blueprints for your reality. So tell better stories. Choose good ones. Stories that honor who you're becoming. Stories that pull you forward instead of pulling you back. Stories that leave room for grace, growth, and possibility. Stories that build your certainty that you are the creator of miracles all around you. You don't have to know exactly how it'll work out. You'll invent that later. You just have to believe long enough to take the first step. And then the world, your world, will rearrange itself around that belief, because that's what stories do. They make the invisible visible. They make belief real. They make life possible. So today, make something, believe in it, then go live it. That's the magic. That's make-believe. That's leadership. And that's your edge of the napkin. Make it a great day.